My name is Laila, and I am a member of 25 and honored to be your moderator tonight. In this panel, we will be speaking about interconnected struggle. And the struggles for liberation in Palestine, Sudan, and Congo are deeply interconnected, rooted in the same systems of oppression. By recognizing the commonalities, we can better understand how global systems of oppression function and how to build stronger, more unified movements for justice and liberation. I am honored to welcome the following speakers today. First, we have Kokonelle. A big applause for Kokonelle. Coco is an educational consultant on anti-racist topics, an inspiring communication designer, musician, and activist. The focus of her work as an educational consultant and activist is the visibility and deconstruction of internalized power structures, as well as the creation of BIPOC empowerment and safer spaces. And secondly, we have Qassem Massri. Big applause for Qassem. Qassem is a Palestinian activist and pediatrician specializing in pediatric care and pediatric cardiology. He was part of the interdisciplinary medical team that was deployed in the Gaza Strip from April 15th to April 29th, 2024. Since his return, he has been unwavering in his dedication to share information on the medical and humanitarian conditions that prevail during this mission in 3 different hospitals. And thirdly, we were supposed to have Mai Alishata with us here today. Unfortunately, she was not able to join, but she sends us her best wishes, and we will try to do our utmost best to still include Sudan in this conversation today. Very nice audience, like so much enthusiasm early on. So in this panel, we will focus on 3 discussion pillars. First, we'll start by looking at the current situations in our struggles. Then we will speak about the shared systems of oppressions that connect our struggles. And lastly, we will discuss how we can strengthen solidarity between our movements. So, starting with our first pillar, on the current situation of our struggles. Qassem, I would love to start with you. You have recently visited Gaza on a medical mission. Could you share with us what your experience was?
Thank you very much. Yes, I was in Gaza for 2 weeks, but actually to share what you have seen, what is happening there, you need around like more than 2 weeks to replicate what's going on. But I have the help of the words of Qassem who said on the 17th of October, after the first big Israeli attack against a Gazan hospital, it was the Baptist hospital which was attacked by a new intelligent American bomb which killed more than 500 people on that day. It was the 17th of October. 2 hours later, there was a press conference where Qassem said, today this war stopped to be a war and started to be a genocide. And when you go through Gaza, like from the south to the north, you see this genocide and these genocidal acts all around. From 36 Palestinian hospitals in Gaza, all of them has been already attacked, and only 5 are acting at the moment, and sometimes they are out of service and come back. So for the whole south of Gaza, where more than 1 million people live, there are 2 hospitals who are active, or 3 at the moment: Nasser Hospital, European Hospital, and Shuhada Al-Aqsa Hospital. And in the north, there is the Kamal Adwan Hospital, and only the emergency department of the Indonesian hospital was rehabilitated, and the Baptist hospital is since the 15th of July out of service again. So to recapitulate that again, on the 17th of October, the Israeli propaganda started saying Palestinians has bombed their own hospital, and this was adopted by so many also international organizations like Human Rights Watch. After 2 hours, Hassan Abu Sitta and his colleagues got so many calls to say, yeah, it's not clear, and after months, Forensic Architecture published a film where it is clearly showing how the Israeli bombed that hospital and which bomb it was, and how it wasn't possible at all that Palestinians bombed their own hospital, apart from the fact that there is no Palestinian weapons who are so massive and big to kill 500 people. So, and it was the moment that they were saying, no, we wouldn't bomb a hospital, but months later they managed to bomb every single Palestinian hospital in Gaza. And actually it was a kind of a litmus test or a moral test by the Israelis to show how it's going, how the world would react to that, and the passivity and the indifference which has been there, like facing the killed Palestinian bodies, showed Israel that they can go further on in that. That's why they attacked every Palestinian single hospital after that. Yeah. What I would like to say is like the most vulnerable population group in the Gaza Strip are children, and all of you now heard about the wave of poliomyelitis, which is like the paralyzed, like a virus which causes permanent paralysis for children, and it takes only one single shot of vaccination to stop that, and it has been like prohibited by Israel for many months, for at least 4 months. Since beginning of July, it was well known that this virus was isolated in the canalization water in Gaza, but still the Israelis stopped and prohibited all possibilities to send these vaccination shots. And we are talking about more than 15,000 children who have been killed, more than 10,000 who are lost all their parents, and the biggest problem actually that we usually talk about the loud genocide, but we don't talk about the silent genocide. The loud genocide caused by the bombs, the shelling, the tanks, the soldiers, but the silent genocide, which is actually being done by the massive destruction of the medical care system in Gaza. We need to imagine that the population of 2.2 million had no access to normal medical care within 11 months. And according to an estimated study by The Lancet, which was published by The Lancet, more than 186,000 people have been killed, like, by the lack of medical care in the last 11 months, which brings this is 8% of the Gaza population, and brings the whole picture into a whole different light. Yeah, that's the medical situation in Gaza, but on the other side, like, it's always inspiring and always almost unbelievable how colleagues in Gaza are still like going to hospitals after 24 hours shifts, standing in the queue to wait for bread for their own families, that after more than 506 killed medical staff worker in Gaza, they still have the courage and the resistance to go and do their work. And yeah, it's always and always, till even 11 months after the genocide, they are still giving, actually, not only me, but the whole world, a lesson in what it means to be devoted to a cause and how to be committed to their own people. And I think we don't talk much, or we don't talk enough about so many medical staff who literally lost their lives to protect the lives of their own patients. So.
Where do you see the current stand of the Palestinian liberation struggle? It's a general question, but where do you currently see the movement?
This is a very wide question, but I will try. Those are the heroes or those are the victims. And I think both pictures are dehumanization of the people of Gaza, or like it doesn't give tribute to the reality of the people in Gaza. They don't want to be victims and they don't want to be heroes. And this is exactly what needs to be said in this context. And I'm always surprised, almost shocked by the emotional generosity you are facing when you go to Gaza after even 8 months of the genocide, after a time of hunger, after a time of almost no medication, no medicine, no people who are coming outside of anywhere. Why I'm saying this? Because I see all your faces and I see like the sadness and the helplessness kicks into us. What I'm trying to say, you are not alone with this helplessness, and and those feelings are more than welcome and need to be like processed, that we change this helplessness into anger and this anger into action to change the whole situation. From the perspective of Gaza, I didn't meet anybody in Gaza who was regretting being a Palestinian or having this Palestinian identity or paying the price of the revolution. And I think everybody has the right to think differently. But from my experience and my perspective, I didn't see that, although there was so much despair and there was so much hope for a change in different circumstances. For the wider picture, I think after 76 years of Israeli apartheid and settler colonialism, we Palestinians stand internationally, happily not alone, with so many indigenous struggles, with so many dear comrades in North America, in the African continent, and all over the world. And I think this wasn't possible a couple of years ago, or a couple of decades ago. And suddenly, the Palestinian who was like kicked out, displaced, killed, is a German and English and a French and a Spanish speaker. We managed to bring the struggle into American universities. We managed to bring the struggle to the fashion shows. We managed to bring the struggle to the film industry. We managed to bring the struggle to even that shoe manufacturers and ice cream manufacturers are taking part in this fight. And I think, although it's a very dark situation with the genocide happening now in Gaza, I believe in the power of optimism as a political act, and I think we are much more near to liberation than ever before.
Thank you very much. I think indeed this power of looking at all of our struggles is something so powerful. So I'm so happy that we also have you today here, Coco. And I wanted to ask you if you could share more about the current realities on the ground in Congo and how the ongoing resource exploitation is hindering the struggle for liberation.
Hello? Thank you. First of all, thank you for having me here for the organization. I just arrived today, so I'm going to try to be really focused and not too tired. But thank you also for everyone just being here and taking part of the discussion and supporting, because I think this is the first step to even understand that the force of coming together is how we're going to get through the struggles, to the suffering. So thank you for having me here, and thank you for being here. To the struggles of Congo, I will just start by talking about the consequences, because I think that's something that is, besides the history of colonialism and slavery and whatever happened, what's happening about neo-colonialism, it's important to just look at the facts right now. For a time frame of 28 years, we have almost around 7 million people dead. That makes 250,000 a year, 20,800 a month, 5,200 a week, and 740 people dying daily. And half of this number are children. So we have exploitation, violation of human rights, damaged infrastructure, increasing in rebel groups. We have child labor, we have mass killings, we have wars, or others, or how we call it now is a genocide. And also when it comes to violation, we have the rape culture increasing. So 48 women daily are being assaulted, are being raped in the Congo. And a lot of agencies, also refugee agencies, call this the most complex and long-standing humanitarian crisis when it comes to the African countries. And you guys know Africa is like a big continent. So it's a struggle, an ongoing struggle that is not gonna stop by now, because we have in Congo the third largest group of internally displaced people worldwide. And the cause of this is resources. Resources that are here to provide for the Western world, also for us all together. So we have gold, we have diamond, we have copper, we have cobalt, we have uranium, we have coltan. We have so much resources in Congo. You can't find anything in the Congo if you want to. It's just spreading out of nowhere. Sometimes I see videos and pictures and I'm like, how the hell do we have so much resources? And we don't even know how much it is and how much the people are really taking from the Congolese people. Before I go on with the resources, I would also like to talk about the climate, because it is something that is very important, that is not being talked about enough for me when it comes to the Congolese struggle. The climate is very important for all of us. If we fuck up this, everything else doesn't matter. And we have the second largest rainforest in the Congo Basin, and goes through the rainforest. So that means when it comes to the climate change, Congo is very important for all of us just to survive, just to breathe. And we need to understand that it is a very, very important part of our whole worldwide life, to understand the importance of Congo and the climate change, and what we need to do when it comes to climate change. We need to talk about the Congo too, and what impact it has on our everyday life. We have, when it comes to coltan and cobalt, we have 70 to 80% of the world's minerals, coltan and cobalt, in the Congo. So we're talking about technology, you know, we're talking about electronics, we're talking about iPhone, MacBooks, we're talking about printers, everything that has kind of a battery inside where you can charge it up comes from the Congo. And we have big names like Apple, Microsoft, LG, Panasonic, Samsung, Tesla, when it comes to cars. Like, there's such a huge names, but also maybe smaller names that are taking from the Congo. Like I say, 80% is coming from the Congo. So who are the people behind this? Of course, we all take parts of this, but I call the people that have the most impact on it the big players. We have the UK, we have the USA, we have France. So these are people who are openly taking and taking and taking, and we know this stuff. They're funding, for now, they're funding like rebel groups in Rwanda, and Uganda. These are like neighbors from the Congo. They're funding them to go to mostly places that have a lot of coltan and cobalt, to destroy like the infrastructure and also to take from the people. So they invade the Congolese people in coltan-filled areas just to get the resource. We have big fights right now between the national army and rebel groups who are fighting, and they're causing the people of Congo to flee. And I want to point out that this is a very political, and long before we even start talking about this, an act that was done also in America. 1939, there was a strategic mineral stockpiling act, meaning that there was this act that allowed the economy of the USA to grow, because they decided this act allows them to go and get the resources that they need for their country. So that means to provide established material supplies for common defense, industrial demands, military commitments. And it was things like aluminium, uranium, copper, nickel, iron. And the biggest target became, of course, the Congo. And when it comes to connecting the struggles, resources is a very, very, very big thing for me. It became something where I understanding where the resource is coming from and who is taking from that will make you understand why we are connected and why everything needs to be talked about together. Because diamond is also something very important, and when you look into it and read into it, you have Israel being part of exploiting the Congo and taking the diamonds out of the Congo and being like a big, big boom and becoming like a very powerful state. Also because they have a global impact when it comes to getting the richness out of the Congo and exploiting the Congo because of the diamonds. And this all started in 1997, the involvement in the Congo for the diamond. And names like Steinmetz and Gertler, if you read into it, they are corrupt people doing like corrupt mining deals over years, and they have big companies just taking and taking and taking. So why is this all happening? Of course, it's history. It comes to neo-colonialism, but also modern slavery. We had King Leopold making Congoese's private possession and lying to the whole world what is really happening. Also, history tells us, because we're in Berlin, and Berlin is very much connected to Congo. We had 1884, 1885. I think this year marks 40 years of the Congo Conference, where they decided what is going to be happening in the Congo and how they're going to split the Congo and who's going to have what part of the Congo. And King Leopold II, he had a lot of impact in that. So he made Congo his private possession, because he already knew what he can get out of the Congo. And there's always like a picture that I will never forget that made this even possible. The Congo Conference made it possible. I don't know if people saw it. It's a very, very graphic pictures. There's like a man sitting on the side of two cut hands, little child's cut hands. It was the hands of his child. And this was a common practice that was done to the Congolese people, just to cut their arms off. And this picture always sticks to my head. And this picture is something that follows me until to this day, because I understand the resource is the biggest issue that we all have. No matter where we look at, it's always going to be about the resource. Because if there's nothing to get there, the big players will not be interested in being there and causing all this damage, all these people to die. Like I said, 7 million people, and half of them are dead children. So the connection would be the suffering, of course, of the people living on place right now in the Congo, but also in Palestine, in Sudan, in all these countries, but also the people here fighting for the rights. And we have like an ongoing generational trauma that is ongoing, and I hope that by exchanging, by talking together, like you said, I can see there's a shift in the way we are fighting right now, because I can see Congolese people doing a lot about Palestine, talking about Palestine, connecting together, and it's very beautiful to see that we're not even separating. We're trying to deconstruct the idea of separation, because this is what causes us to not be together, not be strong, not to understand what is going on, and to be brainwashed into thinking if we see all the struggle as separate areas and not the same struggle coming from the same people, then we're not going to arrive where we want to arrive. Because if you look at it, you always have like the USA inside, you always have France inside, you always have them kind of supporting that the genocide can keep on going. So that's why I'm very grateful to be here, to participate, and to show that if we fight together, we can break the system.
So much, Coco. I had the pleasure of seeing Coco last week in Munich, and I was so impressed by what you were sharing about Congo and how the systems of oppression are the same. So we're very thankful to have you come all the way to Berlin today. You've already both mentioned the shared systems of oppressions in these struggles. When we were thinking about this before the panel, I thought in order to really understand these further, there are three ways in which these systems are very connected. Firstly, colonial legacies. You've already mentioned this. Where is the power? Who are the colonizers, and who were those countries being colonized? Resource exploitation, which you've also already alluded towards. And importantly, thirdly, foreign intervention. So Palestine, Sudan, and Congo have all experienced the long-term effects of colonialism, which imposed artificial boundaries, suppressed self-determination, and entrenched systems of inequality. Qassem, I would love to ask you regarding Palestine. You've already mentioned earlier that Israel was and is a settler colonial project, which has been supported and enabled by colonial powers like Britain, the US, and Germany. When you reflect on this, what do you think are additional ties that you see between the current situation in Sudan, which was influenced by British colonialism, and how Congo has suffered from the extractive rule of Belgian colonialism?
Coco made already the big work to talk about that. What I wanted to add to that is we need to talk about cobalt and the weapon industry, the same weapon industry which connects the old colonial powers who became the new colonial powers, who are over-exploiting the people everywhere. So there are no poor people, there are actually over-exploited people. This is what's happening in Palestine, in Congo, in Sudan, and everywhere. And I think if we just use the resources of all these countries for themselves, it would be easy to see that Europe wouldn't survive at all. So actually, all the richness of Europe, what we see and what we also live, is based on the exploitation and the over-exploitation of these countries. But if we go back to the weapon industry, which is a very, very key factor on the maintaining of these oppressive regimes, either it's in Sudan or in Congo or in Palestine, we find out that the actors in Germany, like Siemens, like Mercedes, like Rheinmetall, are already connecting with the biggest Israeli weapon industry, which is Elbit Systems, who is actually providing lethal weapons to all military regimes around the world. It doesn't matter what. It's in Sri Lanka or in Sudan, and it's clearly how things have changed after the dictator of Sudan has been taken down by the military, which became later to a military dictatorship, which was actually before, but like only the faces changed. There was a new wave of normalization with Israel, which led to the fact that it was easier to deport Sudanese refugees who were in Sinai or in Palestine back to Sudan, and to support the military regime in Sudan itself, which leads also to the role of other oppressive regimes like United Arab Emirates, who intervened in Sudan, supporting the militias, who led to the biggest crisis of refugees actually worldwide at the moment, and the displacement of millions and the death of thousands. So actually, from the intellectual perspective, we can say that oppressive dictatorships are super primitive, but they are intelligent in a very diabolic way, because they learn from each other, they connect from each other, and they get those oppressive methods from each other, which led to the fact that Israel, in its role as the long arm of the colonial powers from Europe and North America in the Middle East, in the so-called Middle East, led to the destabilization of all countries there, and the support and the maintaining of all oppressive regimes in the area. And so it's not an accident by itself that Israel is now in a very, very deep connection with the United Arab Emirates, and actually a very upcoming connection with Saudi Arabia, or the Kingdom of Jordan, and not to forget the military dictatorship in Egypt, which is also enabling and part of the genocide that's happening in Gaza. So the connection is actually, we need to follow the path of oppression based on the weapon industry and the profit coming from the overexploitation of those people, which leads to the basic identity of all of us, we, the people, against them, the systems, and the oppressive regimes.
That's a crucial point, to say where are the resources and follow it in that way, that those are the countries that are currently oppressed. Coco, you already mentioned several parallels that you saw between the resources in Congo, like you mentioned a lot. I remember you also included coal-based diamonds and gold. How else do you think there's a tie between what you see in Congo and in other countries in which the resources are exploited? Also in Sudan, for example, we see that the oil, the agricultural resources are exasperated. Is there other links that you see there between other oppressed countries?
I would say it's also linked to the political situation happening in those countries, because if you look at what is happening right now in Burkina Faso, the presidential is really going against the Western perspective, against all Western ideologies. They're really fighting them to get the F out of the country. And they're making big steps that I believe this should be an example for all these countries suffering right now. Because if the political system in those countries is against those ideologies, is against exploiting their own people, I believe that we will not be here. Because to understand the power that the African countries alone has, for the Western world to be, like you say, nothing, because everything we are seeing around us is being exploited from other countries. So we will not be even able to continue our lives normally like we are used to, if this exploitation is going to be stopped in any type of way. So to have this knowledge in the political system, and also to give the people that are living there the power, would be very nice. And right now it's not really happening. So the people are being not only exploited by the Western world, but also this system is being supported by the politicians living in those countries. So I believe that this plays a big part also in how we can even continue moving on with giving back to the people what they are giving us. So this would be for me the most thing to connect it to say that how we are connected, though we are connecting those countries, is also the political system within those countries. But also it is, of course, neocolonialism. It's always been, when you look at the Congo, it's always been like that. When people were speaking up, being in the political on the political ground in the Congo, for example, Lumumba was someone that till this day is someone very, very important for the Congolese people, because he was one person that really stood against the Western ideologies. He stood against all this imperialism, and he was killed. So it just shows how much power there is when the political system is supporting those exploitation and not giving the power to the people that are really living on earth, and not giving them the voice.
Thank you very much, Coco. One thing you also mentioned earlier was foreign intervention, foreign military intervention, also from neighboring countries to the Congo. Could you speak about how that also suppresses the local uprising, the local struggle for liberation, and if you see any ties there between Palestine and Sudan?
I believe it comes a lot with being helpless. I talked to someone, like an artist friend of mine. He is from Goma. He arrived here in Germany, I think like 1.5 years ago. And I talked with him about the struggles that the people that are facing right now in Goma, in the east of the Congo, how I can imagine that struggle. So the first thing that he told me is that whatever is happening there, not even half of what is happening, not even an inch of what is happening and what the people are living there is even coming through in our media system. So, and the things that hurt me the most was when people become helpless, they're desperate. And they're maybe easily to be lured into those rebel groups. And then it becomes a thing of, okay, the foreign rebel groups that are there, they are also being bought by these by ideological systems of the Western imperialism. So that means that it's easier to not trust your neighbors because they become rebels. And then they recruit children that become rebels. So the future of those children, the future of the people living there, is not really a bright future. And you start to losing trust in the community that you're living in. And community in African countries is something that I grew up with. It's one of the strongest things that you can have when it comes to those struggles. So this military, the foreign rebel groups that are on place are also destroying the trust that the people have with their own people. So that means that there is the Western world oppressing the people, but the people living in helplessness, the people living in this oppression system start losing their own systems, start losing their own communities, start losing their own belief and not trusting their own people. So living in that area, you know, waking up and being like, maybe my neighbor's he's gonna kill me. So maybe I need to do something so I can kill him maybe first. So it becomes a place of danger, not only from the outside, but also from the inside. But this is all part of the oppression system. So I think that not having like a strong community in those areas and not having like a bright future, not people that speak up for you, because when you speak up, you get killed. And to not have the world look at your struggles as something that is real, something that is from importance for all of us, is something that I can say this is destroying the community and the will to really fight for what is happening right now in those countries.
What you just said about community to what you said earlier, Qassem, about emotional generosity, and that's something that you think is something so strongly that you saw on your most recent medical mission, but also growing up in Gaza. Could you speak about the power of community that you saw there, and that despite everything happening, that people continue to practice hope in their community and support one another?
You mean at the moment or in general? Or both?
Both.
Okay. So I truly believe that like that individualism is one of the plagues of the 21st century. I think that it is important to develop as a person on so many individual levels, but at the end of the day, for me, valid is that the collective is above the individualistic progress of any single one, and that's why we need always to strengthen the collective. And I think what happens with oppressive systems, if we rely on single actors, that these single actors get killed, kidnapped, or forcibly disappeared, like everywhere, then the movement or the collective will disappear or stop resisting. And that's why I only believe in the power of the collective, and that's why we need always to be much more than the abilities or the strength of one single person or the hierarchy of leadership, which doesn't work at all. Like, we need to forget the idea of the saving Messiah who we are waiting for. It's anyway a man, and we should not wait for a man. Anyway, but we should really forget about the idea of one single person is gonna change our world and bring us to freedom. Like, we are fed with so many lie stories about heroes who come and change our whole world, and I think it's a continuous practice of political work as a collective and not as single actors to bring us to a state of a mind which can lead to a revolutionary act, which can maybe bring us to liberation. So the power of community has always been in Palestine very strong, in Gaza specifically even stronger. And I remember that every day in the week there was the work of so many people on different Palestinian parties or movements who managed to actually establish so many movements and acts in the society by the work of so many people together. And I mean, if you will look at as Berlin as I would say it's a shadow of what happens in Palestine by the big Palestinian community who lives here, that in the last 5 years many things have changed. We developed into a functioning community with so many movements which are able to actually bring so much people to the street and bring so much strength and actually export a real political radical rhetoric which can challenge the German racist discourse toward Palestine and toward the global South. And my impression and why I try to live and to learn and to practice by interacting with so many people and fellow activists here is that there is no power but the power of a collective. And Berlin gave us the possibility in the last, after the 7th of October, more than before, gave us the possibility and the chance that we connect on so many struggles together. And I remember in October, the biggest demonstrations which were done, it was a collective of so many activists from all over the world, from Kurdistan, from Congo, from Egypt, from Syria, from Palestine. And I think what the state wants in Germany specifically is to separate us from each other. And yeah, okay, this is, they can actually destroy a movement alone and then come to the next movement and so forward. And let's be honest, this is what the Nazis did as well. They didn't start with gas chambers. They started with the single execution of movements. Then there was no space for anybody else. And that's why it's so crucial that we connect at the moment and we bring our effort and our energy together. And I think one of the biggest things I would love to practice and I would like to talk about is that we always need to give our comrades the benefit of the doubt and the tenderness and the weakness for our humanity. I think all of us, we don't fight for any material win or for any material goal. What we are fighting for is freedom, and freedom means also to have the ability to act in a very tender way toward our comrades, and also to understand the weakness of our comrades, and to try not to project all the violence we have been through and we are going through on our comrades. Like, this is, sometimes I see it, you have been talking about the regimes in African continents who are practicing the same oppression which have been exported there by the colonialists. And this is just a fulfillment of the prophecy of Frantz Fanon, a Nigerian psychiatrist, in his very, very famous book, The Damned of This Earth. He's talking about the so-called national bourgeois, and those are the people who come out of a revolution, but they actually exploit their own people, like the colonialists. And we see it everywhere. We see it in Egypt, we see it in Palestine with the PA, we see it in Yemen, we see it even in Nigeria. And I think what we need always to practice, and he goes further and they say, when we, the oppressed people, have actually no possibility to express our trauma or to go to change the situation of violence, we as a collective go through the consequence of that we start practicing violence against own people and our fellows. And what I would like to ask every activist to hear and somewhere else is always to give the benefit of the doubt to a comrade, and to try always to understand the motivations and the weaknesses. And yeah, that's it.
I love what you mentioned about the power of the collective, and this is something that we've seen in so many liberation movements in the past, that there was certain people who were glorified or brought to fame, like when Angela Davis speaks about the Black Liberation Movement, she said there was a lot of focus on Malcolm X, but there were so many people behind him, who stood behind him, that made the movement possible. When you reflect on Germany, or in so many ways, we're trying to be put into smaller pieces, and there's this barrier towards liberation, but also unification of our groups. What do you think, between our struggles, what are the challenges in this being more unified, and how can we overcome these obstacles?
I think it's easier for all of us to stop talking, and I think actually the most difficult path would be that we talk again and again and again and again till we find it. It's a marriage in which we have no choice. It's not like that we have so many choices and we can change the world from a different perspective. We are all like literally trapped in this together, and I think there is no any other possibility but to talk with each other. To the power of collectives, I said before that more than 560 Palestinian medical workers have been killed in the last 11 months. And you can imagine this is a high, very, very high number of experts on so many levels who have been killed, and tens were kidnapped. But still, the hospitals in Gaza are still run. And they're still run by so many people who have sometimes actually no medical education, but they still, after 11 months of the genocide, they still volunteer to help in hospitals without one single euro paid. And all the emergency rooms in hospitals are mainly run by medical students. And I think this is not possible if you don't believe in the power of collective. And I think it's actually the only thing who can protect us in a very hostile community, or a hostile society, like in which we are living now, in which we are facing police violence, discrimination, and marginalization, is to stick even more to the collective.
Coco, what about you? When you look to the future, how do you see our struggles and our movement? How can we work better together? How can we collaborate better together on strategy, but also on concrete actions?
I like to say this is one of the most important things, to talk with each other, and also ways to think that you say about, talk about also tenderness and weakness, because I believe that, especially as activists, there's a lot that we want to achieve, but sometimes also it helps me to, just for me to know it's enough to just start talking about the people that I want to meet, and to try to change that, because what I realize is that we are, even me still, even if I'm trying to deconstruct it, we are very much brainwashed in what is really happening. And sometimes I feel like people that are not into the subjects of the Congo, they don't even have a pinch of information of what is really going on. So I think one of the most important things is to spread the information. Really to try everything that is happening, everything that you find out, the information that you're talking about right now, the information that I'm giving, to try to really spread it to the people, because nobody likes to be lied to. And if you are not understanding that you're being lied to, you don't see the need to take actions. And for me, it helps me to understand where's the connection, what is happening, who's behind this, where's the weapons coming from, who made my phone, just to understand like what is really happening. So for me, myself, I can understand, okay, no matter what someone can tell me, I'm not being blinded, I'm not being fooled, I'm not being held as someone that is dumb and don't understand the structure that is happening. So for me, this would be something that I understood. I cannot maybe change the whole world. I don't want to be like one of the biggest leaders or something, but I want to make sure that when I talk to people and I give them information, that they know what is really going on, and they are not feeling the need to be just sitting at home and not reading into stuff. But when they start doing that, they start understanding. I mean, this year I had a lot of people calling me and talking to me about the Congo and asking like, oh my God, what is happening in the Congo? Can we talk about this? Where can I find information? Where can I read books? And it made me realize it's just the misinformation, because the media is not telling you what is happening. So this will be one of the first things for me, as an individual, that I like to do, and I would love more people to do, just to talk about the things that they know and exchange with other people that know different type of things, so we can just learn from each other, because it's so much things and not one person can have all this information by themselves. So this exchange helps a lot. And I think another thing will be also to really try to go into marginalized groups and really listen to them, to support whatever they're doing, support their events, talk to them, and really try to include them in our everyday thought. Just starting by a thought, to understand that they're there. They have so many histories to tell us what is really happening, and maybe they don't have the power, they don't have the strength right now to be outside on political stages and to just talk about what they have as a trauma. But every time I try to talk to people that are in marginalized group, they are openly there to just tell me what happened and what they have been going through, and also what is happening in the country. So that would be something for me, to really listen to the people that are oppressed, because they are facing the danger really in front of their eyes. We are really far away from that right now, what they're facing. So to listen to them made me realize also, this is what I need to do. I need to raise up their voices. I need to make them louder. I need to listen to what they're saying. I need to follow their structures, because they know best how to get out of the situation. I'm just someone here to support and uplift.
Thank you very much, Coco. And this makes me think about, last weekend we had the pleasure of meeting an activist who is active in the BLM movement. And he said something that really stuck to me. He said that there are 3 steps to advocacy. First, sympathy, which is, I feel bad. You know, you tell me something and, oh, that's so sad what's happening over there. I feel bad. Second, empathy. I feel bad, but I put myself in your shoes. Like, I can feel your pain, I can understand what it means. But thirdly, and most powerfully, is solidarity, which is the ability to see someone else's fight as your fight. And I hope that by discussing how our systems of oppressions are the same in each struggle, we can strengthen our solidarity and collaboration. Because no one is free until we are all free. So thank you very much for coming to me.
First of all, I need to point out here, and I don't believe, yeah, I mean, I don't know if I want to say it this way. I hate to talk about Palestinian numbers. Like, I have to, but I really hate it. And I am obliged even to talk about my own family at the moment in numbers. We lost in the family 50 family members, and I'm not able to say all of their names because it wasn't possible to communicate with the whole family to say their names. And this is another level of oppression Palestinians in Gaza are facing, that you, by yourself, are obliged to talk about your own family and your own community in the sense of numbers. The numbers which are announced by the Palestinian Ministry of Health is around 42,000 Palestinians who have been killed directly and their bodies were identified. But we are talking about an estimated number of 15,000 under the rubble. So we are talking here about 75,000. But this includes the direct victims of the genocide, which means killed by drones, by air jets, by tanks, by soldiers, by bombings, and all of that. But that's what I said, there is the indirect genocide, and we have every single patient with a heart attack would die, every single patient with a chronic kidney disease would die, every patient with diabetes and no insulin would die. And this is actually the highest number of people, and you should imagine that 2.2 million people really had no chance to go out to a doctor in the meanwhile, in a very so many patients with direct wounds and very few beds to comprehend all of them. So it leads to the estimated number of the Lancet with 186,000 as victims, and that's what I said before. This is around 8% of the Gaza population, and I think it was published in July. So we are talking about even there are additionally 2 months, and usually based on what we learned from other wars, if we call this a war, the numbers are usually much higher than we expect. And if I can talk about my medical experience, every 12 hours a child died in the hospital, and it didn't die by bullets, it died by malnutrition. And the consequence of malnutrition, that the immune system is very weak, and every single infection leads to the death of children under the age of 1 year, and you have a huge lack of vaccinations. So actually polio was completely extincted in Gaza. Since 25 years there was no one single case in Gaza, and we are back to the situation again. And many children have died in Gaza already because of hunger. So yeah, we will not be able to give a clear number about how many people suffered died from the genocide now, but I think yeah, I think those numbers are like 186 is actually underestimated, but it's realistic. I lived in this country since 21 years, and I have never felt so like a stranger like in the last 5 years. And then after the 7th of October, I hate Berlin. It's official statement. And there was a time where I was like willing to go into 3 hours discussions with white people who think their emotional distance, what they call objectivity, gives them the right to give opinions on things they don't know about. I really practiced optimism as a political act, and I was still going into these discussions. And sometimes I thought, yeah, it was a good discussion, and sometimes I thought he stole, she stole, they stole 3 hours of my lifetime. And at the moment, I have like 1,000 wolves inside me who fight with me, 1,000 demons who fight with me, depending on my mood of the day. Sometimes I think, yes, I need to talk, and sometimes I say, fuck Germany, who the fuck cares? Yeah. And yeah, and it's really not, it's not always, it's not binary, the answer to this. It's not one or the other. But sometimes you feel like, I feel pity for ourselves. I feel like, why should we always be the ones to educate these fuckers who have the privilege? To change the situation, to challenge it, and to do stuff, and always we, actually the primary victims of the whole situation, we are damned again to explain ourselves and to also be, we should not be emotional, because emotionality is something, it's a weakness. If you are emotional about the death of your own family, it means there is something not true in what you are saying. And as I said, sometimes I want to talk, but after the 7th of October, I don't see it as my duty to educate white people about the consequences of their privileges. If you are willing to ask me, I will answer. But you come to me with the idea that you want to learn something about it, and don't say Abba Hamas. That's, I had enough Abba Hamas in my life now. And don't say Abba we Germans. No. It's not, we are not talking, we are not defining the global south and the Palestinian issue or the people in Congo or Sudan out of the centrality of Europe or Germany. I think the base or the premise on which any conversation should happen is that Germany and Germans were not in any moral position to teach any person of the global south anything about morality, human rights, or anything.
So good from my heart. This was empowerment, though.
That's my way to express tenderness.
Yeah, thank you. What can I add to that? It was basically what has been in my head since I started doing like education and being in this field, because it's very not easy. As an activist that is also a black woman, that is also Congolese and African, it's sometimes just a very lonely world. And I realized, putting myself into the space or the place where I need to answer questions that are openly in the history, I just realized it's not good for my mental health, so that's why I'm not gonna do it anymore. And also, I started to realize that I think really the people that understand what is going on have more power than those questions that need to be asked. And when I go to parties or whatever, sometimes when people are willing to really have a discussion with me and they're really interested in the struggles and what is happening, of course I'm going to have a discussion if it's not a dehumanizing discussion. We can go there. And if I feel like this is just like exploiting me, I'm gonna ask them, like, if you wanna have information, you can pay for that. I'm an educational consultant. You can pay for money. You can sit down. So I can use this resource for the things that I'm doing. And also, what really helped me understand that this discussion is not gonna help us to go anywhere is that the diaspora is way bigger than that. We have so much impact if we understand that the diaspora can change everything. And I learned one thing when I was doing my trainings. Everything that is brought into democracy can be discussed. So what is happening right now, the things that need to be discussed, we have to give the direction. We have to talk about it and bring it in any type of form. It doesn't mean that I have to sit around with white people and explain to them. I need the community that is understanding what is going on, so we as a community can start pushing those subjects more and more and more. And at the end of the day, the white people are going to be sitting there and be like, why is everybody talking about this? And why I don't understand nothing about what is going on. So they're going to be put in the position where it's about, like, you know, how it was happening with Palestine. Everywhere just Palestine, Palestine, Palestine. And then people are like, they have to talk about it because it's already on the table and everyone is talking about it. So you're being excluded if you act like you don't see it, you don't care. And I think that is where I see the power. I go to those places where I know, even white people can be in there, I know the people that are there, they're going to push this subject. And when we are pushing this subject, there's nothing to do than to talk about the subject, and then you have to go and get your own information.
To every Palestinian in the room and every oppressed person in the room, I have been told by a very inspiring comrade, Nadia Samour. She said, like, our biggest achievements as Palestinians in the diaspora in the 3rd and 4th and 5th generation is that we are still there. They displaced us and we are still there. They killed us, we are still there. They stripped our bodies, we are still there. They put us in ghettos and we are still there. They are making a genocide, and we are still there. And I think this should be like a lesson for all of us, that we are not only that we have the power to be so resilient, that our resistance is actually unbreakable. And in the moment of helplessness and depression we all go together through, please think about it, that we managed since hundreds of years to be resisting and to reach this moment of history, which brings us more near to liberation.
And just a last thought from me that helps me to understand where I need to go and not to lose my focus. The one thing that the people that are oppressing people don't want to see is us being strong together, because they know this is the unbreakable bond and this is the most thing they're afraid of, that we come together, that we talk, that we exchange, and that we fight together. So if you feel lonely, if you feel helpless, just remember, they want you to feel that way because you're going in the right direction. You're exchanging, you're talking, you're going to places. So I hope this can give you strong, that we together are stronger than them.
Thank you so much to both of you, Qassem and Coco, for being here with us today. I feel inspired and hopeful and empowered, and I hope that you feel the same way.